Hello everyone, my name is Nate Phillips, and I am going to be analyzing Bryan Lee O'Malley's Lost at Sea. It was published by Oni Press. It is 192 pages long, and I actually like the book. I would suggest it to anybody to read, but I will go ahead and let my video tell you guys all about it. So I hope you all enjoy, and thank you very much. What's interesting about this graphic novel is that it is a hardcover version of the original, which was done in 2002. This marks the 10th year anniversary. Additionally, it has enhanced color as well as some short stories that were added later. The short stories have nothing to do really with the original plot, but they're still pretty cool to look at. It gives you kind of a more in-depth perspective of what's going on within the story itself. So I just wanted to give a little overview on the plot of the story and a little bit on how it's structured. The story is told from the perspective of a recently graduated from high school teenage girl named Raleigh, and there's the main plot of the story, which is she went to go visit her father and her boyfriend in California, and then she met up with some acquaintances who were also in California, and they're now on a road trip back to Toronto. Outside of the story, we go to different parts of her memory, and it'll swap back and forth between present time, where she's riding with her friends, to the past, where she's talking about, the basis of the whole journey and everything else. The story isn't really done in a very conventional way as far as comic books or even storytelling goes. The act structure is very hard to put together, but I'm going to do my best. I would say that the beginning of Act 1 actually starts on page 11 when Raleigh says that she has no soul, and then it continues on to page 28 where she starts to dream about cats. I know that kind of seems odd, but just bear with me for Act 2. Act 2 is primarily filled with a bunch of backstory concerning Raleigh. I won't get too much into it because I intend to talk about her character later in the next section. On page 76 is when the climax to Act 2 starts, when Raleigh keeps seeing cats everywhere, and then later on she feels that her soul is trapped inside a cat. On page 117, she confesses to Steph, one of the people she's traveling with, that she feels her soul stuck in a cat, and then Steph agrees to help her find this cat. So Act 3 starts directly on the next page, 118, where Steph asks Ian and Dave, two other boys who are traveling with them, to help her find Raleigh's soul that's in a cat. They agree, and after a wild goose chase of looking for this cat, Steph and Raleigh end up having a heart-to-heart, and Raleigh confesses that she's having some misgivings about leaving her boyfriend in California. He gave her a note, and she was afraid to open it. So she cries about it, and Steph gives her a hug, and then they just continue back on their journey, and that's basically where the story ends. As far as the story arc goes, this story was a little difficult to follow. I had to read it twice to get a better understanding of the beginning, middle, and end. As far as the main story goes, where they're on a trip and they end up still on the trip, but the character development, That part of it was fine, but the back and forth between present time to Raleigh's narration of the past, it was a little jarring at times. I thought the resolution was all right. She basically came to terms with the fact that she can't control everything in life, and it was a good story in my opinion. Character arc, yes. Raleigh is the best character arc in the story. She would be because the story's told from her standpoint anyways. But her character arc is basically what makes the story in my opinion. The author does a really good job showing her transition from being despondent and pretty isolated to kind of opening up to these acquaintances who end up becoming friends. And by the end of the story, she is closer to them and they're closer to her, and that's really essentially what makes this story so great, in my opinion. I would say that the transitions in this story are actually not very good, just for the simple fact that it does a lot of shifting back and forth without really any heads up. 1 minute we're in the car where they're traveling through California, and the next we're like in a distant memory from when Raleigh was just a child. So I'd say that the transitions are a little non-existent in the story, but it's still very well told in my opinion if you just kind of pay attention to what the author's trying to convey. Yes, this story does make good use of the mini-comic idea. I'll show an example here. On page 38, if you look, Stephanie has decided that it'd be fun to use the beds in the motel as a trampoline. If you now look, Raleigh's like, oh my god, what the heck is going on? So Steph just keeps jumping and jumping and jumping. And then we go to the next page and she's still jumping. And then right at the bottom on page 39, we see Raleigh who's, thinking, well, what am I gonna do? So what do you think happens next? Yep, she decides to jump too, and there's Ian looking a little absurd as to what's going on right before his eyes. The direction of flow in this story is pretty simple. It's just block to block. There's no extravagant different types of paneling and different shapes and what have you. Bryan Lee O'Malley is pretty good about that. He does pretty simple panels. Also, he used to be a letterer for Oni Press, so his lettering, in my opinion, is pretty impeccable. The last thing I wanted to add was a panel that happens directly after Steph and Raleigh are jumping up and down on the beds. Dave steps in as well as Ian, and he has the exact same expression as Ian has, like, what are these girls doing? I thought this was just a great panel. It happens to be my favorite in the story.